Today we're going to ask, are we like the apostles? And believe me, that wouldn't be a good thing. Welcome to 5-Minute Gospel Reflections. I'm Dr. Ben Safransky. Today's story is my absolute favorite story in the Gospel and my favorite mystery of the Rosary as well. We're talking about the Transfiguration. The thing I love about the Transfiguration is that it is the whole spiritual life and also Lent in a nutshell, right? In our spiritual lives, just like in our normal everyday lives, we have these mountaintop moments like the apostles had on the mountain when they saw Jesus in all his glory, revealed for what he really is, talking with Moses representing the law and Elijah representing the prophets, the two great pieces of the Jewish scriptures. These moments keep us going. They give us glimpses into what really matters, what's most important, what we need to do next. But the thing is that we don't spend all that much time on the mountaintop. We have these mountaintop moments, but then we have to come down to level ground, or even worse, the valley. A couple things about this gospel really have struck me reading it for today's reflection. The first thing is that Jesus' companions, the apostles, Peter, James, and John, are asleep until God's glory appears. Now, the thing about the apostles in the Gospels is that until we get to Pentecost, when they're given the Holy Spirit, they really are not people that we want to imitate, right? They follow Jesus, yes, so we want to imitate that. But they are sluggish, sleepy, impatient, ignorant, like they don't get it until Pentecost. And so falling asleep here, that's not a good thing. That's sort of like when they fall asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's a sign that they are not involved, not paying attention, not with Jesus, not really with him. And for me, this is a lot like my spiritual life. It seems like when God gives me this moment where he reveals himself, where he reveals the glory that's awaiting, then I'm awake. But until that glory appears, it's like I'm spiritually sleeping. Like I'm not always watching, I'm not always waiting, I'm not always going out and working for the kingdom. Sometimes I'm just asleep. The second thing that struck me about this passage today is what Peter says, right? Peter, he's always the enthusiast. And he says that they should stay on the mountaintop in the glory, right? He even says we should build tents up here. We should build a tent for you and a tent for Moses and a tent for Elijah so that we can stay, right? We can camp on the mountaintop. But the reality is that after the glorious revelation, which is kind of brief, it disappears and life goes back to normal. And I found that is very much like my life in a lot of ways, including my spiritual life. That after I have these mountaintop experiences that might happen in prayer, might happen on a retreat, might happen in a conversation with someone that I really trust spiritually, my life tends to kind of come back down and go to normal. And so my challenge for you and for myself is, as we realize that some of our life is lived on flat ground, some is lived in the valleys, and occasionally we get these views from the mountaintops, I'd like us to consider where we are right now. Are you on a mountaintop with God? Are you on kind of flat ground, sort of cruising along? Or are you in a valley, a dark or difficult place, struggling to see God, to see the big picture? Think about that and maybe reflect a little bit on how your relationship with God is when you are in that kind of spot. Let's think about that as Lent progresses through this desert towards the mountaintop of Easter. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.